The challenges of mass urbanization. As more people are moving to cities, we will take a look at what a key UN agency is doing to prepare authorities to manage the increasing burden. Also on the show, why Hungary decided not to join the European plan to curb carbon emissions. We will discuss that with the country's foreign minister. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu, and this is The Heat. US President Trump raised some eyebrows when he used the global stage to talk about America first and not multilateralism. But for the Hungarian foreign minister, it was a refreshing speech. Hungary has restricted migration and taken a more nationalistic approach, very much in keeping with the US leaders' outlook. To discuss this, as well as relations with China and the challenge posed by Brexit for Europe, we welcome Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjarto. Minister, thanks so much for joining us. Let's start with relations between Hungary and China. You held a meeting with the Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi here at the General Assembly. How would you describe relations?
Well, actually, the Hungary-China relations have never been as good and as effective as they are currently. And I'm happy to say that since this year we commemorate the 70th anniversary of the establishment of our diplomatic relations. And how could we celebrate it better than being able to say that we have never enjoyed such a good relations than currently. So I can tell you that the trade between the two countries has been increasing. Number of Chinese investments in Hungary has been increasing. We have no open issues when it comes to the political relationship, and whenever it is possible, we hold high-level meetings. I always take the chance, whenever I take part on multilateral events, to ask for a meeting with my colleague, the State Councillor and the Foreign Minister, and we usually sit together and consult about the issues which are in common. He just recently paid an official visit to Budapest, which was, I think, very effective and very fruitful.
Now, one of the major Chinese investments is in the construction of transport links, linking Hungary with Serbia. You've got the link going from Bucharest to Belgrade. What is the status of that?
Well, look, we understand that the Chinese exports to Europe will be increasing. And we understand that part of the Chinese goods will be delivered by ships to the Greek ports. And from there's a competition to be launched between the routes, which one would be the fastest, which one would be the most effective, which one would be the cheapest. And we have entered this competition with the railway line between Belgrade and Budapest to be reconstructed. If we reconstruct that railway line, then this delivery route will be the quickest, cheapest and the most effective one, which is our interest. We have signed the contract on the construction in both countries. The Serbs are a little bit more ahead. We still have the negotiations going on about the loan contract between the Hungarian Ministry of Finance and the Chinese Exim Bank. As soon as these negotiations conclude successfully, the construction contract will enter into force. And then, according to estimations, from there it will take around 5 years to totally construct this new railway line, which will feature a two-track line, totally electrified.
Looking more broadly at the relationship, not just between Hungary and China, but also between China and the European Union, how important is it?
Look, we understand that the global economy has been changing extremely quickly, profoundly, and meaningfully. And we understand that China is becoming one of the most important factors of global economy, approaching the position when Chinese economy is going to be the biggest one in the world. So China and China's development and China's role is a reality. That's why we we have a very firm position that it is the European Union's interest to create a effective economic cooperation with China, to develop a effective trade cooperation with China, and to create a political relationship which is based on mutual respect. This is what we always argue in favor. We understand that sometimes you are confronted with hypocrisy from the side of the European Union. Many Western European countries criticize China very loudly, but then under the surface they make enormous businesses with China and take a lot of profit out of this relationship. You know, Hungary represents only 1.8% of the EU-China relationship. The 17 Central and Eastern European countries represent around 10% of the EU-China relationship, so it is still the Western European countries which make the big businesses. But I think it is our interest to maintain this EU-China cooperation, given the fact that these changes regarding global economy put us in a very heavy competition, and the more allies you have, the better position you can get.
Now, we are seeing an escalating trade war between the United States and China. How does it impact a country like Hungary?
Look, our country has a small but a very open economy. Our export over GDP ratio reached 86.5%. So you see that the external factors play an extremely important role when it comes to the national economic performance of ours. That's why for us it is very important the global economy or global trade to be free and fair, the least possible obstacles to be there. So in our case, China is the number one trading partner outside of the European Union. US is the number 2 trading partner outside of the European Union. So for a country like Hungary with a small and open economy, it's terrible news that the number 1 and the number 2 economic partners outside of EU are having quarrel or debate or trade war. So what we hope and what we cross fingers for, we cannot do anything else than that, than crossing fingers, is the settlement of this debate and try to find some solution through negotiations with the least possible obstacles and customs on the way, because that hurts our national economic interests as well, no question.
I want to turn to the General Assembly here in New York. One of the issues that dominated this General Assembly was the climate change issue. The new president-elect of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, she wants to make Europe the first climate-neutral major economy in the world by 2050. Only 4 countries do not sign up to that. Hungary is one of them. Why not?
You know, we are really in favor of environmental protection. We are absolutely in favor of having clean air, clean water, healthy environment. That's not a question. But we think that climate change and environmental protection are so important phenomena that we should not consider them just like a communication issue, okay? Because it is very easy to say that by 2050 we're gonna be climate neutral. But it's more serious than that. We need to have a plan how to get there. Because what we see now is that many times competitiveness issues and environmental protection issues do not go hand in hand, and this is a problem. They should go hand in hand because we must remain pragmatic, and we must remain effective, and we must remain on the basis of common sense. You know, so I really think that we need a plan in order to come to know how we get to a climate neutral situation. So far, European Union does not have this plan.
But if you say there is no plan, what's wrong with signing up to what the European Commission wants to do rather than not signing it?
We consider the climate change issue and environmental protection as serious things, you know, and not just, you know, communication balloons, because if you sign up to something, then the question whether you mean it seriously or not.
So let me clarify this. You believe
Yes.
that climate change is taking place and that it is caused by human activity?
No, what we know is that environmental protection is very important, and we really want to protect the environment. We really would like to avoid negative developments regarding the climate. We want this planet to be sustainable. We want to leave it to our successors as a healthy place. But it's a serious thing, and not a communication balloon. Let's have a plan how to get there, and if this
Well,
plan
isn't
is
that
credible,
plan-
then it's a new situation.
Isn't that plan the Paris Accords? Why not implement that?
Well, we were the first member state of the European Union to sign up to that. But now what the European Commission speaks about is a little bit different.
Why is it different?
Because the goals which have been set by the European Commission are not totally falling in line with the expectations or the goals we have set in the Paris Accord. So look, we are open, and as I told you, environmental protection is important for us. We really mean it. We make investments, but we have to see how European economy will go along with that.
Okay, one of the other issues in Europe right now is Brexit. What is your position on Brexit? Should Britain get another deal?
Well, look, what we know is that Brexit will cause really serious economic loss to the European Union. You know, I understand that there are some approaches which try to deny it, but the fact is that it's gonna really cause a big loss, given the fact that UK represents currently 14%, 1/4, of the European Union's economic performance. And you do not need to be a Nobel Prize winner to understand that if an integration loses 14% of its achievement, then it's gonna hurt. On the other hand, politically, it's going to be a loss as well, because the British always represented kind of a common sense approach when it was about the future of the European Union. You know, they were in favor of cutting back bureaucracy. They were in favor of competitiveness to be enhanced. They were in favor of the role of national parliaments to be increased, and so on and so forth. And this position will be missing from the debates about the future of Europe. So there's going to be a little bit more unbalanced. Look, I understand that Boris Johnson is under very heavy pressure. He's attacked pretty much in international media, in international political arena. But I mean, if you look at the developments, honestly, you have to say that the one thing he want to make is to fulfill the will of the people, because the will of the people was expressed on a referendum, which was to leave the European Union, which we regretted, but it's their decision, it's their right to make a decision, we respect it. So I don't know whether he's going to ask for a prolongation, and if he does, then European Union should make a common decision. I think one of the biggest merits we collected during the Brexit talks was that we could preserve the unity of the European Union. That should be continued.
You have blamed Jean-Claude Juncker for this. Why is that?
Yeah. You know, I still remember that after the referendum in the United Kingdom, the European Commission was behaving like not to be able to imagine that the British would be brave enough to decide to leave, you know. And instead of behaving like that, you know, they should have helped that time British Prime Minister Cameron, to convince the British people that within the European Union they will be able to develop in a pace which is quicker compared to developing outside of the European Union. But for that, some reforms must be made within the European Union. That's no question. You know, when we have debates about the future of EU and we represent our position, we are usually highlighted or portrayed as if we were against the European Union, European unity, whatever, which is not true. We are in favor of European Union to be strong, but we have a debate how European Union can get stronger. Our position is that a strong European Union must be based on strong member states. And that's why we should not weaken the member states further. So no more national competencies should be brought to Brussels. We should let national competencies by the capitals, and these strong member states could form a strong European Union.
Well, Boris Johnson doesn't have the support of his party right now, or the majority in his party. They want changes to that exit, to that divorce deal, if I could put it that way. Would you support changes to that?
Well, actually, it needs to be a European decision, so it wouldn't make sense to commenting on that. We need to preserve the unity of European Union. We have to see what other European countries would occupy as a position in this regard.
I want to move to the question of immigration. We heard President Trump talk about that in his speech to the United Nations. You have called immigration or migration dangerous in terms of law and security. Explain that.
You know, in Europe, there were more than 1 million illegal migrants entering the territory of the European Union in a framework of an uncontrolled, massive flow. So no one really knew who came in, no one really knew what their plans were, what they were up to. And if you let hundreds of thousands of millions of people flowing from one place to another without any kind of control, it definitely gives the opportunity for people with bad intention, to take advantage of that. So terrorist organizations can take the advantage to send their terrorists, their fighters, with these uncontrolled waves from one place to another in the world. And Europe has been suffering of that. Since 2015, there were 30 major terrorist attacks taking place in Europe, committed by persons with migratory background, killing more than 300 innocent people, and there were more than 1,300 injured.
So isn't that a bit of a generalization to say that terrorism is being caused by the waves of migrants that are reaching Europe, people who are leaving parts of the world where there is war?
What I said was that the uncontrolled flows give the opportunity for the terrorist organizations to send their fighters from one place to another in the world. And it's a fact. It's a fact. We have been witnessing it. What we think is that we should not encourage people to hit the road and come to Europe. What we should do is to bring help where it is needed. Bring help where it is needed, and don't bring problems where there are no problems. We are a small country, but we have done our homework, and we have been doing our homework. We have spent already altogether $40 million on helping the Christian communities in the Middle East to be able to stay in their homes, and we have contributed to 50,000 people to return or to stay in their homes, instead of hitting the road, paying for smugglers, risking their lives and coming somewhere.
You've called President Trump's speech to the General Assembly, you've called it refreshing. Do you support the policies, especially on immigration, that he talked about in that speech?
What I called refreshing was his approach towards patriotism. When he was elected, he said America first. That caused some frustration in Europe, because in Europe, the patriotic governments are usually attacked and accused by very, very bad words and very unfair criticism, comparing these governments to the darkest dictatorships of the last century. So, and since Donald Trump has made it clear that for him America is first, it's much easier for us patriots in other parts of the world to say that, for example, Hungary first. So we always base our foreign policy on mutual respect. We respect the interests of others, we respect the approach of the others, we respect the decisions of citizens of other countries, but we expect others to respect us, to respect our history, respect our position, respect the decision of our people as well.
So, President Trump did make those comments about nationalism, about national sovereignty. What do you make of globalism? Do you also reject the idea of globalism?
I'm not an ideologist type of person. I support the ideas which are based on mutual respect. I support ideas which avoid lecturing others. I support ideas where we respect each other's specificities, history, tradition, heritage, religion, and so on. And so forth. That's why we made it very clear that, especially under these turbulent times, national interest must be the compass. And for us, our national interest is the compass.
Minister, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate it as well. Thank you.
We need to take a quick break. When we return, we will discuss the challenges of developing urban areas around the world. We will be back in a minute. Hello everybody, I'm Anand Naidu. If you enjoy the thoughtful, engaged discussions you see on The Heat, you may also want to subscribe to our podcast. It's appropriately titled The Heat. Twice a week we take a deep dive on world headlines, talking to experts, journalists and others. It's a fresh, focused and intimate look at the issues that matter most. Whether it's the Hong Kong riots, the latest Middle East conflict or US politics, The Heat podcast gives the clear context needed to understand both what's going on and why. And what's best, we come to you. Whether you're at home or on the go, you can find The Heat podcast just about anywhere podcasts are found. Just search The Heat CGTN. Have a listen today and subscribe. Thanks.